So now that we've got all our basic gameplay elements in the game, and we've added sound into the mix as well, there's one final component we want to add into our game to make it a full kind of complete challenging experience for our player, and that's to add in a boss battle at the end of our level. So we're going to start out by first laying out our boss in the world. So I'm just going to close our other sprite sheet, and then I'm going to open up this new boss sprite sheet that we have over here just beside it. So this sprite sheet, we haven't done anything with it yet, so we need to sort out all its individual pieces so that we can drag them into our game. So first of all, let's go ahead and make the size of it the same as our other elements in the game. So 64 pixels per unit. We want it to be a multiple sprite sheet, or multiple sprite mode even. We're going to set filter mode to be point, so that everything looks sharp. We want to set the compression to be none, so that we can see everything perfectly. And on our max size, we can see the sheet is 512 by 512. So let's set that for our max size here. And we can apply those changes and then open our sprite editor. And here we go, we've got this big massive giant boss that we're going to use to fight against our player. And we're just going to make this be automatically sliced up into parts. So we can just go to slice here and automatic, and then just tell it to slice it up. And we can see it gets chopped up into one big body part here, and two little bits to go on the end of the arms, and a couple of other little laser looking things. So we're going to apply those changes, and we'll pop back into the game. And then we're just going to click and drag those individual elements back into the world. Before I do that, I'm just going to collapse all these various bits in our hierarchy here that are taking up space, and I'm just going to drag the big boss into the world. As you can see, it's a big massive thing for our players to face off against. Then we've got this little hand here, and this other hand. And we're also going to drag in this bit of a green laser. And we're going to make some positional changes to all these things now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is each of these hands should be a child of this main body object. So the main body is boss 1. The hands are 0 and 5. So I'm just going to click and drag each of them on top of 1 here. So now they're a child of that. We have this other laser here. I'm going to I won't duplicate it just yet because we want to make some changes to this one, and it'll be we're going to use 2 of these. So basically what we're going to do is have our boss has this main body. It's going to have these 2 individual pieces here that our players will shoot at first, and each of these pieces is going to have a laser firing out across the body that protects the main part of the body here from being shot by the player. So we have to first destroy the 2 little outer hands to enable us to be able to destroy this inner center of the boss here. So let's start off by just popping one of these there, and then we're going to grab this other one and pop it here like this. Then I'm going to grab this laser. I'm going to rotate it around so it just kind of roughly matches up with this here. So I'm just going to grab this and rotate like that, kind of roughly the same. There we go. Then I'm going to stretch it out like this here. We're going to make it nice and long so that it stretches out from the center thing of this hand here and impacts, or it looks like it impacts at least, with the body over here. So this whole laser object is what's going to protect this main red section here from being attacked by the player. So to make sure that our player can't attack this main body section, we're going to apply a box collider to this laser. So we're going to say here box collider 2D, and we're going to leave it as a solid object. And basically what's going to happen is when the player destroys this bit of hand or whatever we call it up here, that will destroy this laser at the same time. So let's do the same for this one down here. I'm going to duplicate this laser, and then to make sure it's rotated at the same angle, instead of being minus 74, I'm going to set it to be plus 74. Oh, I didn't duplicate it. Hold on. Duplicate, there we go. Now we'll, like I said, we'll set this to be plus 74, so it goes to the same kind of angle over here, and we'll move it into roughly the right position again, like that. There we go. If we switch to our game view, we'll see, okay, we've got these 2 lasers blocking off our main body being hit. So that's just the rough layout we have for our giant boss here. The next thing we need to do is think about how we're actually going to bring it into the game. And then we're going to take a look at how our boss is going to be handled mechanically. So we're going to have to create a custom script to manage this, but it's all going to make sense, and we'll just take it one step at a time and go through the different ways our boss will be completed. Before I go any further, I'm just going to make sure and link up these lasers with the correct hand. So we want the bottom one to be with the bottom hand and the top one to be with the top hand, and just to make sure we have the right one, I'm going to deactivate one of the hands and it turns off that laser, and we'll do the same with the other one just to be sure. Boom, and it turns off the other laser. Okay, so we've got our boss now. Let's go ahead and start adding the ability for the boss to appear in front of our player. Okay, so we want our boss to come in from the side of the screen and then start doing stuff that'll put our player in danger. So we have our boss right here in place. He's perfectly fine there for the moment, but we'll want him to move in from the side. But to do all that, we're going to need a script, obviously, to control that. So let's go down to our scripts folder. We're going to create a new C# script that we'll call it boss1. Because if you're making a game like this, surely you'll have multiple bosses as you play through your game. So we'll just call this one boss1. I'm just going to wait for this to compile a second. There we go. And what I'm going to do in our hierarchy is create a new empty object and call this the boss battle. And I'm going to attach the script to this object. And then I'm going to make the boss itself. So I'm actually going to rename this object here to be the boss. And I'm going to click and drag that and make that a child of the boss battle. So this way our boss battle will stay wherever it is, but that will control the position of the boss in the world map. So we're going to move the boss itself off the screen, so it starts off out to the side over here, and then once the battle starts it'll slide into place into the world. But how are we going to activate the boss into the game? When do we want it to appear? Well, logically the time when we want our boss battle to appear is when our last wave stops appearing. So let's set up our game manager to be able to do that. So we're going to go first of all into our game manager script, and we're going to create a new reference to the boss itself. We'll create a public game object. Oh, that's not working. Game object that we'll call boss battle. And you might not necessarily want to have a boss battle at the end of every level in your game. You might want it to kind of move on to the next level without having to fight a boss. You could just fight some enemies and move on to the next level, and then say have a boss every third level or something like that. But what we want to do here is say, okay, if there is a boss battle in the world, then we want to activate it when our waves run out. So when do our waves run out? When our wave tracker gets longer than our wave delay's length, then we stop spawning our waves. So when we stop spawning our waves, we can also tell it to, okay, if the boss battle, sorry, not the boss. If boss battle does not equal null, so basically if we have assigned a boss battle to the game manager, then turn that boss battle on. So we'll say boss battle dot set active is true. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make sure that that works before we do any more in our game. And we're going to go back into Unity, let that save. I'm going to deactivate the boss battle. We're going to let our waves play, and hopefully we should be able to see it in action. Let's go to our game manager. We're going to hook up our boss battle into that slot like that. I'm going to set our starting lives to be 3 just so we don't die and inevitably mess everything up. Let's go ahead and press play. So our little ships come in. Try not to get killed by all of them. Oh, I'm not doing so well at that. We're still getting lots of power-ups. I forgot to reset our power-up chance down from 100. So we're shooting away. We've got all our enemies popping in. But you can see now, so at this point our 3 waves have been spawned and our boss battle has been activated. Of course, it's not doing anything in our game at the moment, but we can see in our hierarchy over here, our boss battle is now active. So perfect. Our game manager is doing exactly what we wanted to do. I'm actually, just while we're here, going to reset this down to like 25, even less than that actually, 12% chance of getting the power up, because you don't want to be getting one all the time. Okay, so we've got our boss battle in place now. So let's open up that boss battle script and start doing some actual things with it. So the way we're going to handle our boss battle is by using multiple phases in our game. So there'll be the first phase will be as our boss moves in from the side of the screen. Basically what we'll have is straight away we'll have a countdown to how long it takes for our boss to appear on screen. Then once that countdown ends, we'll move our boss into position. And then once our boss is in position, we're going to make it move up and down the screen, and we're going to wait for it to get shot in the two laser hands. Once the two laser hands are destroyed, we'll move on to another phase where our boss battle will start shooting extra bullets, because of course the whole time the boss will be shooting bullets. It's no good if our player is just standing there looking at the boss. It needs to be having some kind of danger going on. So in the final phase we'll start shooting extra bullets, and then when the boss is finally destroyed, we'll move into the last phase, which is the boss is defeated. So to do that, we're going to first of all create a couple of public bools. So we're going to say public bool phase 0 for when we first start. Then we're going to have public bool phase 1 for when we're making the boss move onto the screen. Public bool phase 2 for when our boss is on the screen and he's now actively firing at the player and the player is trying to destroy the two different hands. Then we'll have public bool phase 3 for when the boss's hands have been destroyed and the player is trying to destroy the main body. And then finally we'll have public bool phase 4 for when the boss has been destroyed and we move on to deactivating the boss or moving on to the next level or whatever. So to start off with, we'll have phase 0. So in phase 0 we want to count down to the boss appearing on screen. So we'll just add a public float countdown to start. And then all we're going to do is in our update loop here, we're going to say phase 0, we're going to say if we're in phase 0, then make our countdown start going. So we'll have countdown to start minus equals time.delta time. And then if our countdown to start is less than 0, then that means our countdown has run out, so move on to phase 2. So we'll say not phase 2, we'll move on to phase 1. So phase 1, so we're actually doing something with the boss at this stage. Phase 1 will be equal to true, and phase 0 will be equal to false. So nice and simple and straightforward. That's how we're kind of progressing through these different phases. So the next thing we'll do is go into phase 1. So that means we're at the point where we want to start our boss moving in and getting onto the screen. So we're going to take a look at how we're going to handle phase 1 in the next video. So in phase 1 of our boss battle, we want to move our boss onto the screen. But let's have a think about what we're going to do that before we do anything. So if we go back into the game here, I'm going to reactivate the boss battle on the screen so we can see what we're doing. Like this. Okay, so we've got our boss coming in, and once he gets into position, wherever that will be in the game, we don't want the boss to just be sitting here doing nothing. What we want it to do is slowly move up and down, trying to avoid getting shot by the player, and also trying to move where its bullets are firing towards the player. So we'll let it move up and down between two different points. So basically we have 3 positions that we have our boss that wants to go into. We want it to go into its first position where it starts, and then we want to have it go up and down between 2 other positions. But because if it's moving between those 2 other positions, those will be in a straight direct line with where our first position is. So really all we need is those 2 positions, and then we can take the X position of one of those to use for where our boss should stop moving into the screen. So let's go ahead and create those 2 variables that we're going to use to position our boss. So to do that, we're going to go to the boss itself. We're going to right click and create a new empty object that we'll call top position. Then we'll duplicate that and change this one to be bottom position, like that. Then to test out where our boss should appear, we're going to actually, I'm just going to make sure things line up a little bit better. Our main overall boss battle holder, I'm going to set this to be at position 0, 0 in the world, just to keep everything nice and easy. And then our boss battle, we're going to make sure he starts at 0, so he's right in the middle of the screen when he comes in. And of course we want him to be off to the side, but that's okay, we don't need to worry too much about that. But so for example, to find out where our top position and our bottom position will be, we're going to move him onto the screen. So he's going to appear at this point of the screen, and this is where he's going to stop. Maybe just a little bit more in. How does that look in the game? Yep, that looks absolutely fine. Then what we're going to do next is say, okay, so how high can our boss go? We'll move him up. We'll say maybe he can go up about this high here. So if he can go that high, well, let's take the top position, which was a child of him, and make that no longer a child of the boss, but a child of the whole boss battle in general. So now if we move the boss down to its lowest position, down here, say, our top position still says up there, but our bottom position now, we have a position for that. So now we can make that no longer a child of the boss as well. So we'll make that a child of the boss battle. So now that's here. And now we can move our main boss back into position where he should be. So he should be at 0 on the y-axis and off to the screen at the side here. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. We have our two positions that we want to have our boss in, and we know what position we want to move him into first when he gets onto the screen. So let's set that up now for our phase 1. So in phase 1, what we want him to do is move towards this position. So we're going to use a different bit of code that we haven't done before for moving our objects in the world. We're still going to affect its transform position, but we're actually going to need to know what it is that we're moving. We have no reference to the boss just yet, so we're going to need to put one in here. So we'll have a public game object that we'll call the boss. We obviously need to know about those two positions that we want to put him in, so we'll have a public transform top position, and we'll have a public transform bottom position. And then finally we need to know how quick should our boss move into the scene. Well, we want him to move in at a certain speed, so we'll say a public float move speed. And we probably want our boss actually to move at a different speed when he's coming into the level, and a different speed again when he's moving up and down. So we'll actually have a move speed X for when he's coming in, and we'll have a move speed move speed Y for when our boss is moving up and down the screen. Okay, so we've got our boss now, or we've got our values now. So what we can do is when we're in phase 1, okay, get the boss's transform dot position, and we're going to set it to be equal to a vector tree dot move towards. So what move towards does is, fairly logically, it takes your current position, you have a look at what a target position should be, so where you want your object to go, and you use a float for a distance to say, okay, go towards this position over a certain amount of time. So we know what our current position is. That's the boss's transform dot position. We want to go towards a new vector tree. We want to stop at the X position of one of our top or bottom positions. Let's say we'll go with the top position. So top position dot X. We want it to stop there, but we want to stay at the current Y position we have. So we'll say stay at the boss transform position dot Y, and stay at the boss dot transform dot position dot Z. So that's fine. That's our place we want to move to. So then finally we have, how fast are we going to go to get there? Well, we'll use our move speed X, and we're going to multiply that by time dot delta time. Perfect. So the next thing we want to do just after we do that is check and see if our boss has gotten into position. So we're making our boss move towards this position, and if he gets there, so we're going to say if the boss's transform dot position dot x. So if he's in the right position on the x-axis, he should be at the, which that should be equal. If the boss's transform position x is equal to the top position position dot x, well then in that case, hey, we know we're done with this phase, so let's start moving on to the next one. So we'll say phase 1 is now false, and phase 2 should now be true. So before we go any further, let's test this out and make sure it's working in the game. Save all that, go back into Unity, we'll let it compile down, we'll hit, oh, I just hit play unthinkingly there. What we need to do is go to our boss battle and hook up some of this stuff here. So the boss, we need to say the boss is this object. Our top position will be this one here. Oh no, I clicked on it by accident. Our top position, and then our bottom position. Our move speed x, let's give him a move speed of say 5, and we want him to move up down fairly slowly, so we'll say that 2 will be fine. Okay, so we have our boss here now. By default, we want our boss to start at phase 0. So as soon as the boss is activated in the world, phase 0 is true, so we want to start counting down. We're going to give him maybe just a 3-second countdown for now. And the next thing I'm going to do is, on our game manager, because we're just testing our boss, we don't really want to have to worry about our waves, so we're going to set it to be a really high number for our waves to be counting down. That's probably too high actually. A big enough number for our waves to be counting down so our waves don't start spawning on us, we don't have to worry about them just yet. So let's hit the play button. Once the game gets going, we'll wait a few seconds, and then our boss appears on screen. Oh, he's dangerous looking, he's very fierce, but we got him onto the screen now, so we can move on to our next phase and start getting them moving up and down and starting some lasers firing out at the player. Okay, so now that we've moved on to phase 2 of our boss battle, we want our boss to, now that he's in the middle of the screen here, we want him to start moving up and down on the screen and start being dangerous to our player. So let's go back into our script. Now what we could do is move on to doing phase 2 here. We could say if phase 2, and we can start doing a bunch of code in here to start moving them. But thing is, while our boss is moving, we want him to be moving the whole time from this point onwards. When he enters into the next phase, when his main body is exposed, we still want him to be going up and down. So rather than just saying if phase 2, start doing movement, instead what we're going to do is say if not phase 0 and not phase 1. So as if we're no longer in phase 0 or phase 1, then we want to start doing our movement. And the reason we do this is because rather than just saying if we're not in phase 0, start moving up and down, well then in that case, when we get to phase 1, he'll start moving up and down straight away, which we don't want. Or if we said if we're not in phase 1 anymore, if we just said that, well then in that case, when we're in phase 0, he'll start moving up and down in the world before he's even on the screen. And that's no good to us either. So we have to say both of those things can't be true, and when they're not true, that means we can move on to moving our boss up and down. So to control whether our boss is going up and down, we're going to add a new bool variable up here to say public bool, well this could be private, but we'll make it public just so we can see on the inspector when we're looking. So we'll say public bool move up. And so if move up is true, then our boss should move up, and if it's false, we'll get him to move down. So by default it'll be false, so straight away he's going to start moving downwards on the map. So let's work with that. So we'll say if not move up. It doesn't matter if we did it with move up first or moving down first. It doesn't really matter. We'll just do it this way though. So if we're not moving up, we're moving down, obviously. So in that case, what we want to do is say we want to do the same bit of code as we did up here. So rather than typing all that out again, I'm just going to copy and paste that line of code we have here. And this time, instead of going to top position.x, what we want to do is go to stay at the current boss's transform position on the x-axis. So we'll just take this whole little section here. Oh no, I scrolled off to the side there. Trying to select things that are slightly off screen is a little bit finicky sometimes in MonoDevelop, so it might actually be better just, we're just going to delete the line about the X position there like that, and we'll change the Y to be an X. And then on the Y-axis, what we want to do in here is say, okay, on the Y-axis we want to move towards the bottom position. So we'll say bottom position dot transform dot Y. So this way our boss, oh sorry, not transform dot Y, transform dot position dot Y. There we go. So this way our boss will now start moving down the screen, but of course we don't want him to move by the move speed X, we want him to move by move speed Y. So if our boss is moving down, then the next thing to do is check and see if the boss has gone to that position yet. So if the boss's position, or sorry, the boss's transform position dot Y is either less than or equal to, we'll just say less than or equal to, it doesn't really matter too much, but if it is less than or equal to our bottom position dot Y, well in that case we've gone down as far as we should go, so instead we're going to switch around so that move up is now equal to true. So if move up is true, well then we must be dealing with the else statement that we have here, and in this case what we're going to do is do the same exact movement we just had above, except instead of moving towards the bottom position dot Y, we're going to go through the top position dot Y. And then after that we can do a similar check again as we've done here. We're just going to copy this whole line of code here, paste it in, and we can say, oh, if the boss's Y position now is greater than or equal to the top position dot Y, well then in that case move up should now be false, because we've finished moving up, we've gotten as high as we can, so let's start moving back down again. So let's save this, go back into Unity and make sure that this is all working fine for us. There we go, it's all compiled, and we'll go to our boss battle, make sure we have everything hooked up that we need to before we play the game. Now when we press play, keep an eye on the phases as they change as well. So our boss comes into position, we're now into phase 2, and our boss is moving up and down the screen. So we can fire away and start doing some various bits of damage as we go. So now that we have our boss moving the way we want him to, let's set it up so that he can fire bullets back at the player. So we want our big boss here to be able to fire bullets at the player. So if we zoom in on him a little bit, we can see he's got 4 different points here where he's going to shoot his guns out of. So we've got bullets that will appear out of this bit and this bit here, and those will be our first round of bullets, and then once our lasers get exposed, then we'll switch to using these 2 extra bullets here that'll shoot away at the player as well. So to do that, we're obviously going to need some points in space so that our scripts will know to instantiate bullets at these positions. So let's go ahead and create them as child of the boss himself. So we're going to create an empty, and we're going to call this shot point 1. Actually, if we put it as shot point space 1, we should be able to get it to automatically update. So shot point 1, we're going to put this down here like that. We'll duplicate it, and of course it didn't update. Sometimes in Unity they will automatically concatenate up to 2, but that one didn't work, so we're just going to manually drag this up so it's in position in the center of this shot here. Then we're going to create another one, shot point 3, and this one is going to appear on these little mini cannons, and finally shot point 4 will be on the other little mini cannon. Okay, so we've got our positions where we're going to shoot from, but now we need some bullets to fire. And we don't want to use just the same prefab bullets that we've used for our enemy lasers here, but we will use these as a template almost for our boss's bullets. So we'll just click and drag this, drop it into the world here. Then I'm going to break that prefab. So break prefab instance, and we're going to change this to be boss laser. And then in our art files, we're going to grab one of these bigger lasers that we've got here. Let's go for we'll go for this kind of slightly thinner one, but also bigger than what we've currently used. So we'll pop that in there. If we zoom in a bit, you can see our collider for this is now quite a bit smaller. So I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Where's our box collider? There we go. I'm going to stretch that out like that. So now we'll have some bigger bullets for our player to avoid, and we're going to make them move a little bit faster as well. So we're going to say that they move at minus 20. So they're that little bit harder for our player to avoid as well. Okay, so we've got that one bullet. So those will be the bullets we use for phase 1, these outer guns. But we're going to use the bigger bullet for when we're on phase 2. So let's duplicate this. We'll call this Boss Laser 2. And we're going to use this sprite for that. So we'll pop that in into the slot up there. And if we zoom in, I'm just going to move it down a bit so we can see it properly. We can see that this one is wider but also shorter. So we're going to adjust the box collider again, make it a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, not too much wider, but there we go, just that little bit wider so it's harder to avoid for the player. And because these are bigger shots, they're going to move slower. So we'll set the move speed of these be back down to 15, the same as our other enemies. Okay, so we've got our 2 bullets. Let's make them prefabs. So we're going to pop that one in there, and then the other boss laser will pop in there too. So that's perfectly fine. So we can delete them from the world now, like that. And then we can return to our boss himself and actually make him shoot those lasers. So let's go into our boss here. So we'll obviously need a reference to those individual lasers that we want to fire. So we're going to say public game object laser 1 and public game object laser 2. Then we're going to need the points that they're going to shoot out of. So we'll have public transform shot point 1, like that. And since there's going to be 4 of these, I'm going to cut down on the amount of time it'll take me to type them all out and just copy a few of them like that and change them to be shot point 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so we've got our places that we're going to shoot from and the laser we're going to shoot. Now let's be able to count down between our shots. So we'll have public float shot delay and private float shot counter, like that. And then we know that we want to keep these shots going the whole time. So if we're in phase 0 or phase 1, we want to keep those 2 outer guns firing. Or sorry, if we're not in phase 0 or phase 1, we want to keep those 2 outer guns firing. We want to wait until the boss is on screen before we do any bullets like that, because we don't want him shooting before the player can even see him. That's not very fair, really. So after our if statements for moving him, what we'll have here is have our shot counter counting down. So we'll say shot counter minus equals time dot delta time, like that. And then of course the next thing we want to do is set it so that whenever our shot counter goes below 0, so if shot counter is less than or equal to 0, well, in that case you better instantiate some bullets. So instantiate laser 1 at the shot point 1 dot position and shot point 1 dot rotation, and also instantiate another bullet or another laser at shot point 2 dot position and shot point 2 dot rotation. And of course, when our shot counter goes down below 0, we want to make sure that we reset that back up to be full. So shot counter equals shot delay. Perfect. So that's how we're going to get our boss shooting at us. So let's save that and we'll pop back into Unity and set all that up and test it out before we go any further. Waiting for it to compile. There we go. Okay, so on our boss here, on the boss battle script, actually, there we go. We want to hook up all our shot points first of all. So we'll pop shot point 1, shot point 2, shot point 3, shot point 4, we want to hook up our lasers. So we'll put boss laser there and boss laser 2 in there. Our shot delay, we want to make him be able to be rapidly shooting. We'll set it at 0.5 of a second for the moment. That might be a little bit too fast and intense, but that's okay. We'll set it there for now. And with all that set up, let's go ahead and play the game and see it all in action. So we count down, boss is on screen. There we go. Now we got our bullets flying at us. We've got this kind of tunnel we can deal with in the middle. Oh, we've taken some damage. And so now at this stage, we're onto the part where we need to start shooting at these laser hand things to be able to move on to the next phase of the boss battle. Okay, so now we're at the stage where we want to be able to actually do some damage to our enemy here. So we've already set up our lasers here with box colliders, so let's do the same for a couple of the other elements that we're wanting to use. So for, say, the top laser guy up here, we're going to add a box collider to this one. So a box collider 2D, and we're going to shrink this down because we only really want it to be generally around this little red area here. So we're going to shrink it down and then offset it up a little bit, so that kind of general area is perfectly fine. And we're going to do the same for the other one down here. We're going to add a box collider 2D. I did add a 2D one to the other one, yes I did. We're going to do the same thing, so we'll add a box collider 2D, we'll shrink it down and move it down to there. We'll make that a tiny bit bigger. There we go, that'll do. So those are our two outside pieces that we need to hit, and then we have the main body here that we're going to add another one to. So on the boss, we're going to add another box collider 2D. Obviously we don't want it to be this huge massive size, we want to shrink it down quite a lot to be just this kind of rough area here, and then just this rough area here. One other thing we want to do is make sure that once again none of our lasers or anything like that can interact with itself. So we're going to highlight all the elements of our boss here, and we're going to add the enemy layer to it. And then on our two lasers over here, we want to make sure that they're on the enemy layer as well. They are, of course, because they were copied from our previous lasers. So that's fine, so now they won't interact with themselves. But there's one other issue now, which is that if we shoot our lasers at this enemy, at the moment, they're not impacting on him at all. So even though those are all box colliders and they're all, none of them are triggers, apart from our lasers here, of course. But if I shoot away at them, they're not impacting with the boss at all. And this is because of how the physics system works within Unity, and more specifically how the on-trigger enter works in Unity. So we have our shots, our player laser here. It's a box collider and it's a trigger, and we have that moving through the air and impacting with something else. But the only way in Unity that a trigger can be detected as entering into something is if either the trigger itself, so the object that is a trigger, which is our laser, has a rigid body attached to it, or if the other object that it's hitting into has a rigid body attached to that. Now we haven't used rigid bodies on our lasers because we wanted to keep it nice and simple. We were firing a whole load of these. We didn't really want to worry them with physics. So instead what we're going to have to do is with these individual elements of our boss battle, so these 5 pieces here that have colliders attached to them, we're just going to add a rigid body to them. So a rigid body 2D, and we're going to set it so that it can't rotate and that the gravity scale is 0. So we're not worried about it moving around on us in the world or anything like that. It'll just be frozen in place. So that's perfectly fine. That's what we wanted to do. Now we can demonstrate that by going back into the game here and pressing play, and we wait for it to come onto the screen. And what should happen now is, there we go, our bullets now are hitting against our collider. At the moment they're causing it. I think I might have given them the tag enemy, which I should turn back off again. But we don't really want power-ups to be dropping out of our enemy boss, really. That's not very punishing for our players. Let me just go and correct that before I do anything else. There we go. This one has the tag enemy. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so now we have all our colliders set up. That's perfectly fine. That's what we want them to do. So the next thing we want to do is make it so that we can actually do some damage to these different parts. And the way we're going to do that is setting up a very simple health system into our boss battle. So let's go into our boss battle. we're obviously talking about shooting the top laser and the bottom laser pieces. So on them, we're going to create a reference to them, to those individual objects. So what we're going to say is, we'll call them. What we call them? We'll call them just public game object. Nice and simple. Top laser hand, we'll say. So we're not specifically talking about the lasers themselves. And public game object bottom laser hand. Okay, so we're talking about the two of them. So what we want to do then is have them have individual amounts of health. So we'll say public int top hand health and public int bottom hand health, like that. So that's our two individual elements of health on our boss robot. So we have those two things. So let's make sure that we can do damage to them using our bullets. So let's go over to our bullet controller. We're going to add a new tag for the boss himself. So we're going to say if other.tag equals, actually no, we won't add a tag just for the boss. We're going to add a specific tag for each individual laser. So basically what we're going to say is, and this is something that could be reused for other bosses. So say for example you had different bosses with different lasers and stuff like that, you would just reuse the same tags on them. But we're going to have, if the other tag is boss laser top, say, if that's the case, well then we want to do damage to our boss's top laser hand. So what we'll do is we'll find object of type boss1. So we're finding the boss1 battle, and we're going to say, okay, take the top hand health and take away 1 from it. So top hand health minus equals 1. Nice and simple. That's all we wanted to do. So we're going to do the same for the lower hand as well. We're going to say if other.tag equals boss hand bottom. Well, in that case, do the exact same thing. We're going to find find object of type boss1 and take the bottom hand health and take away 1 from it. Okay, perfect. So we have that going. So let's go back into our boss1 script. And so when we're in phase 2, we're going to add a couple of simple little checks in here to say, basically, if the health for any particular hand runs out, then we deactivate it. So we'll just say if our top laser hand, nope, sorry, that's the wrong one. Our top hand health is less than or equal to 0. Well, in that case, our top hand is being destroyed, so we're going to deactivate that laser. So we're going to say top laser hand dot set active is false, and we're going to do the same for our bottom laser hand. So we're going to say if bottom hand health is less than or equal to 0, well then in that case we want to set our bottom laser hand to be inactive as well. So that's all perfectly fine. One other thing we can do while we're doing this, we might as well make it a little more interesting, and we could make an explosion appear when our hand gets destroyed. So let's go up here and we'll create a reference to our explosion that we've used in the past before. So public game object explosion, and we'll scroll back down, and before we deactivate the hand, we'll just instantiate an explosion, and the position we'll instantiate it in is where the top laser hand currently is. So top laser hand dot transform dot position, and the top laser hand, oh no, not top position, the top laser hand dot transform dot rotation, like that. So we'll get a cool explosion going on. So we'll do the exact same thing when our bottom hand gets destroyed too. We'll set off an explosion, but instead of being at top, we'll set it at bottom. And here instead of top, we'll also say bottom. Okay, so we're making both of our healths be destroyed. So let's go in here, wait for it to compile, and we're going to hook up all that stuff we just did. So we'll go to our boss battle. We've got our top laser hand, so let's move that into position. That should be this one, isn't it? Yeah. So our top laser hand into there, our bottom one into there. We're going to give both of them a health of 3 for the moment. You'll probably want to make it a bit harder in the final game, but for testing that's perfectly fine. And we'll drop our explosion into that position there as well. Okay, so we've got all of that set up. The next thing we need to do is assign tags to each one of these. So our top hand, we're going to create that tag that we wanted to use, which was, make sure we spell it the exact same. So we'll go into our bullet controller, boss laser top. So we'll add boss laser top, and we'll also add boss laser bottom. So let's just double check that they're both spelled right before we go any further. Perfect, they both are. So now what we can do is go back into the game, and it should be that all of that stuff will now be working properly for us. So we can press play again, wait for him to come in, fire away, and keep an eye on the health in the bottom corner now. I'm going to try and avoid dying, but probably won't do so well. We're not taking any health away from our boss, so something's going wrong. So we'll have to take a quick look at that. Oh, of course, I just realized we never applied the tags to these two guys here. We created the tags, we never applied them. So, boss laser top and boss laser bottom. Okay, we'll go again, and I'm going to switch back to the boss battle so we can keep track of the health of them down here. So then down here, I'm going to shoot away. And we're still not working. Why isn't that working now? Just popping back into our bullet controller script. Of course, I typed in the wrong thing here. I don't know why when we specifically checked the right tag, I didn't notice that I had written boss hand instead of boss laser. So, third time is the charm. We should have it all worked out now. And these kind of errors are the little things you want to always recognize and be able to deal with in your game. So, when you have errors in your game and things aren't working the way you expect them, most of the time it's due to human error. So I'm going to shoot these pieces. Oh, we couldn't see our health. Where's our boss battle script? There we go. So our health isn't going down. No, sorry, the enemy health is going down now, but there was something weird happening. I don't know why I'm getting this error. There you go. Okay, well, we've got our instantiate happening over and over again. That's not very good. There will be a fix for that in a second, but we can see at least that our various parts are being destroyed. It kind of looks a little bit cool that our explosions are going off like that the whole time, but that's not really what we want to happen. I'm going to go back into our script. I just set up a simple little debug to catch what was going on, so I'm going to delete that. So our health is now actually working for us just fine, but as we saw, once it explodes, it just kept on exploding. And the reason for that is, well, once our health goes below 0, it's permanently below 0, so we'll keep instantiating it. So instead of leaving it at that, what we're going to do is say, once our health goes below 0 the first time, we deactivate the object, instantiate our explosion, and then set our health to be a really high number. So we'll just say, top hand health equals 999. 9999. There we go. Yeah. And we'll do the same for our bottom hand. We'll set that to be equal to 9999 as well. And then what we'll do is, to move on from phase 2, because we know that's all working for us now, what we'll do is at the end here, we'll add a new check to say if our top hand health is equal to 9999. Oh, that should be equals equals. So if our top hand health equals 999 and our bottom hand health also equals 9999, that means both of our hands have been destroyed. So we should stop phase 2, So phase 2 equals false, like that, and phase 3 equals true. So we've now completed our work in phase 2 and we can move on to phase 3. So now that we're in phase 3 of the boss battle, we'll have all our lasers disappeared, so we've got a clear open view on the main body of the enemy. So let's set it up so that we can actually hit that body. To do that, we're going to add a new tag to the main part of the boss here. We're going to go to tags, we're going to create a new tag here that we'll just call boss main, and then we'll go back and actually apply the tag this time. There we go, like that. So we have that tag there, so we know that we can use that to hit this part of the body. So let's go and first of all, we're going to add a way of tracking the health of that into our boss battle. So let's go here and create a public int main health. So that'll be what our main body's health actually is. And to affect that, we're going to go to our bullet controller. We're going to add a new if statement here. So if other.tag equals boss main, well then in that situation, go again, find the boss battle. So find object of type boss1, and then we want to affect the main health by taking away 1. So minus equals 1. So perfect, that's going to take away our health as we go. Then we'll go back over to boss1 here, and we're going to say if we're in phase 3. So at this stage we know we're in phase 3, so we're going to do some stuff in here. The first thing we're going to do is just deal with when our health runs out. Basically, if our main health goes below or equal to 0, well then in that situation we're at the end of phase 3. So phase 3 equals false, and phase 4 equals true, and phase 4 will be our final phase as we end the level, or end the boss fight, sorry. That'll be all fine and dandy. What we should do is, hey, our big boss is getting destroyed, so let's set off a few explosions at this point. Let's instantiate an explosion at the main position of the body. So at the boss's position, we'll set off, or sorry, no, we don't want to instantiate the boss, we want to instantiate an explosion at the boss dot transform dot position and the boss dot transform dot rotation, and we'll set off a few more at the same time. We'll set off like maybe 3 explosions to go off at once, just to make it a bit more grand as it goes. Now of course you could use different explosion prefabs, which would make it more interesting as well, but we're just going to stick with for the moment the default one. So instead of just being the boss, we'll set another one to go off at shot point 1, which I believe is the top shot point. So shot point 1, and we'll set off to go at the bottom hand again as well. So bottom position, no, not bottom position, sorry, that's the wrong thing. Bottom laser hand dot position, there we go, and bottom laser hand dot rotation. Perfect. So we'll save that, and if we're in phase 3 and our main health is gone, that's all fine and dandy, we've dealt with that. But what about before we run out of health? Well, when we're in phase 3, we know we want to be firing more bullets from the center of them, and for that we're going to use another shot counting system. So not just the normal shot delay we've used up there, we're going to use a different one for different timing for this one. So we're going to say public float shot delay 2 and public float, or sorry, private float shot counter 2. So as we've done with our shot counter over here, we're actually just going to copy and paste this whole bit because we might as well just reuse a good bit of it. And then in phase 3 we'll put it above our main health check because this is going to be constantly happening as we go. In here we're going to say instead of shot counter 2, shot counter 2 is less than 0. Well, in that case, reset our shot counter with our shot delay 2. So now instead of firing laser 2, or laser 1, sorry, we're going to use laser 2, and we're going to fire it out of position 3 and position 4. So like this. So let's save all that and let's go ahead and test this out in the game, because we've set up all these basic stuff here and it should equate to this actually all working just nice and simply on our boss. So of course our boss at the moment doesn't have a lot of challenge to him. What we would want to do is kind of find the balance of getting how many shots he fires as he goes. We'd also want to find the balance of how much health our boss should have, and of course all of that stuff only comes with testing the game more and more as you go through. So let's go down here. So his main body health, we'll just put that at 5 for now. We'll just leave it at 3 actually, keep it nice and simple. Shot delay 2, we'll make this shoot a little bit slower because they're bigger bullets. We'll put it down to 1. Actually no, we'll put it at 0.7. Actually no, we'll put it at 1 just to make it a little bit easier for me to play through here. I'm also going to just give myself a whole bunch of lives so that we can just test out how the boss goes. And everything else should be all hooked up fine for us. We'll make sure we did give the boss the main tag, didn't we? We did indeed. So let's go ahead and press play and test this out. So we let this go. The boss comes in. We fire away. We can't shoot through the lasers. Oh no, what do we do? Well, let's try and shoot the hands. If I can. I'm not very good at avoiding these lasers at all. There we go. We got one of them. We got a nice little explosion. Let's go and get the second hand. There we go, that's free. And now we've got these other bullets flying through. So now we've got to kind of maneuver around through both of these fields and kind of not do so well at it. But we're destroying the boss. His main health is down low and he should have been destroyed, but he hasn't been destroyed yet. Why hasn't he been destroyed? I do not know. Let's go back in here on our main health. Oh, of course, we never actually deactivated the boss. So rather than having him continually going, let's go game object dot set active false. There we go. I knew of course we'd have to be missing one vitally important element, but that's okay, these things happen. So we'll save this, let it compile, and once it's finished going you can press play here. We'll try this again. Getting the various pieces, just destroying him. Okay, we've got our main bullets firing now. There we go. He got destroyed and he had a few big explosions from out of his body. So perfect. Our boss is now destroyed. It's all working perfectly. There's one minor quirk we just want to fix up very quickly. We might not have noticed it ourselves here, but keep an eye on the bottom hand health. If we start this game here and I get into the right position. Oh, I wasn't down quite low enough to do it there. We'll play and we'll pause it and we'll try and line up my player so he's directly in line with the boss's hand. So that should be about right to be able to shoot it. So if I just fire away here now, before the boss even comes into the game, I can destroy his first hand. And that's not really very good. We don't want our players being able to cheat like that. So we're going to add one quick little extra check, which is to say we're going to add in a new boolean value up here. We're going to say public bool can be hurt. And we're only going to turn that to be true once phase 1 is complete. So once phase 1 is complete, we go into the part where the boss is moving up and down, so that's fine. So at this point we're going to say can be hurt is equal to true, like that. And then back over in our bullet controller, we're going to say here that we want to be able to check and see if that can be hurt value is set as true. But the thing is, we don't want to have to go and find that object just to check and see if can be hurt is true. So what we can do is, in our boss, we can set it to be a static variable. So we can say public static bool. And what that means is we can access that without actually having to reference a particular object in the world, because this can only be true or false. We can never have two bosses in the world and have one of them set to can be hurt and one of them not be, because we've made this a static value, no matter how many copies of this script there are, it can only either be true or false in the entire game at any one particular time. So we could have one boss after another and set and turn it on and off in that way, but we could never have two of them going at the same time, where one is can be hurt and one is cannot be hurt. So to be able to access that then back in our bullet controller script, all we have to do is go we can just add a new little line here onto our other tag. So when we're trying to shoot the top of the hands, we can just say, and on our boss 1 script, the variable can be hurt, is that true? So if boss 1 that can be hurt is true, then we can do some damage to it. And we'll do the same on the bottom of the hands. We can say, and boss 1 that can be hurt is true. So that's fine. We'll do the same on our boss main, although our players shouldn't be able to shoot our boss main when the boss hasn't fully appeared, but we're just adding it there just to be cautious. So let's just go back into the game. And the start of the level, I'm actually, rather than trying to get in position once the game is running, I should probably just move the player down a little bit. So we'll just move him down so he's on the correct line. So he's in line there. So we'll start the game and start shooting. So now we'll shoot away, but we can't destroy any of the lasers before the boss actually starts properly. So perfect, that's exactly what we wanted to do. But now the boss has started, so we can destroy our hands if we're good enough, which generally speaking I'm not, but that's okay. I can make the game, I can't necessarily play it like an expert. But there we go, we've got our boss battle now fully functioning. We've got a multi-phase boss battle. It's nice and simple. It wasn't actually that hard to put together. It's just taking one logical step and thinking about each step as you go through your bosses.